I just want to thank everybody for being incredible fans over the last 5 years. I've never seen anything like it. I was on Star Trek for part of the Star Trek family for a long time, and I thought I knew what the ultimate fans were from that, but you guys kicked their butt, and the Chuck fans are just phenomenal. We wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you guys. I know you guys enjoy the show, and I hope you know how much the cast and the crew really loved all the love that you sent back to us. We really felt it, and we really appreciate it. So thanks for watching.
All right. Tell us about what it was like to be on Star Trek.
Are we rolling?
Yeah.
Oh, awesome. Great. What was it like? Well, it was, it was really interesting because I think as an actor, you always hope that you'll do something. When I was acting, I always hoped I'd do something that would last, that I had a lot of different jobs, a lot of theater jobs, starting in the theater, did a soap opera back in the 80s, All My Children. I did a bunch of guest stars and things like that, but something about it always felt very temporary. You'd do a guest spot on a TV show, it'd air, and then it was kind of over, and it was, it just felt kind of job to job. When I got on Star Trek, it was just a whole different sense to that experience, because you realized you were part of a huge franchise. You were part of something that the fans were going to follow while you did it, and they were going to hang on to it when you were done, and it was just really profound. It felt like you had really reached or had an opportunity to do something that was going to be around forever, and so it was kind of cool. And specifically on Star Trek, my first experience, I guest starred on an episode of The Next Generation, and I just did one episode, and it was awesome. I had a whole storyline with Will Wheaton. I was kind of the bad guy that got him in trouble and kicked out of Starfleet Academy, and just had such a great experience on that episode. Do you remember that episode? Yeah, it was called The First Duty, and anyway, it was great. It was awesome, and then I went on to other jobs and things, and kind of didn't think about that episode much after that. And then a couple years later, I got a call. They were doing a new Star Trek series, and they liked what I did so much with that character that they wanted me to come in and read for the new series. And that time, the first round on Next Gen, it was a lot of fun, but I didn't realize what I was getting into, When they called the second time for Voyager, I was like, I've got to get this job. This is just too good to pass up and too good to miss. So yeah, that's kind of how the Star Trek thing came about. And also, by the time I got into Voyager, I'd done enough different shows, and I'd been around long enough to really know that I wanted to direct. So going into Voyager, in fact, the very first day of filming, I remember walking off stage, and we had wrapped, and I was walking back towards the parking lot at Paramount with Rick Berman, our producer, and Garrett Wong, one of the actors on the show. And I remember saying to Rick Berman, I said, I really want to direct. If this show lasts, I really want to direct. And he sort of laughed and chuckled, and I went, no, Rick, seriously, I really want to direct. Whatever it takes, you tell me and I'll do it. And he said, we'll see, maybe in season 3 or 4, And I said, no, I want to direct this season. I want to direct soon. I was very aggressive about it, and just kept bugging him, and hanging out on set when I wasn't acting in the show. And I went to production meetings. I went to editing and watched editors. I trailed directors when I wasn't acting. Went to department meetings, all sorts of things, just trying to learn how the show was made and what that job really entailed. So then by the time they had an opening, it was actually Jonathan Frakes was supposed to direct an episode, and he had to back out at the very last minute, and so that's the episode that I ended up taking.
And then so
that was Star Trek, yeah. So
and you got to direct your first show on.
I directed my first show, and then I thought back then, because I didn't want to become a director who had just started directing on his own show, and that's all I knew. So I took some classes at AFI. I joined a group called IFP West, which was the Independent Feature Project. They had a lot of seminars about filmmaking and independent filmmaking, and made a couple of short films. One was with Joshua Jackson, who's on Fringe now, and was on Dawson's Creek for years. And the other was this one, 9mm of Love, with Carl Lumley and Liz Vassy and Sean O'Brien. And so I made those films, did the film festival circuit, kind of learned about my second film. I shot on 35mm, and I finished on film, so I got to go to color timing at the lab, and I got to really learn about film in kind of the basics. I felt like that was my film school, was making those shorts, and I really tried to take it seriously. Not that everybody doesn't, of course they do if they're serious about film, but I didn't want to be one of those actors that, oh, it's a vanity thing. I just want to direct, on my TV show or something. I really wanted to learn the fundamentals of filmmaking, and so that was great. I mean, Star Trek was like my film school. I just picked everybody's brain on the way they made our show, or the way other shows that they had worked on were made, or other techniques, or so learned a ton about visual effects, which is coming in handy. I feel like the foundations I learned at Star Trek have helped me so much to just quickly be able to make decisions about how to shoot something, or how to involve visual effects in things that you wouldn't guess were visual effects.
Right.
Or how to solve problems using visual effects in ways that people that aren't so familiar may not even think about it. And I can just go, oh well, if we lock off, I can just mat that out or cut that part out, and we don't have to actually do a stunt here, because I'll shoot it as a lock off with AB, and there's ways of thinking that have helped me so much. So Star Trek was awesome.
And then Star Trek got you into the Comic-Con scene.
It did, yeah. Star Trek led to
Conventions,
a lot of Star Trek conventions. I remember my very first convention was in Orlando or somewhere in Florida, and it was just surreal. I mean, I don't even think the show had been on the air yet. Maybe it had, Voyager had just premiered that month or something. I remember walking out, and a couple thousand people, it seemed like. I don't know how many were there, and just people screaming, and you're like, oh my God, you feel like a rock star, It's incredible. And I used to get really nervous, at those conventions too, just because so many people, and I was worried that I wouldn't be funny, or it wouldn't be entertaining, or whatever, and now it's just a pleasure. I'm very relaxed and have a great time, and the fans are awesome.
Yeah. So what's it like doing Chuck panels then? Now that you've been doing Chuck and you've been doing Comic-Cons,
yeah,
the difference between the two.
Well, it's funny. I mean, the Star Trek appearances that I make, it really feels like a couple lifetimes ago that I was on Star Trek, because I'm not really an actor anymore, although I made a little appearance in the finale, which was just for fun.
Good.
But people will ask questions about Star Trek, and it's been a long time, so sometimes I don't remember. They'll mention a title of an episode, and I'm like, I don't even remember what that was about. Whereas Chuck, the difference between a Chuck panel now is, it's just what I've been doing for 5 years, and to be honest, I feel like I'm so much more deeply involved and deeply invested in Chuck in a way that, being an actor on Star Trek, I was just kind of at the very end of the process. Everything was done and written and prepped, and we just shot it. As an actor, you just show up and you shoot it. But as a producer on the show and a director, I feel like I've been able to be a part of so many of the big and small decisions that have made Chuck what it is. So it's been incredible. Yeah.
And the Chuck fans at Comic-Con, a lot of people are saying, they've been the Comic-Cons and the Chuck fans that kind of really launched Chuck.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's funny because when we first started, and I think this is a real testimony to Josh Schwartz's instincts. Josh is a very smart creator of entertainment. He really knows how to get to the heart of the shows he works on, and kind of market them and connect to the audience that watches his shows. And Josh was pushing early on to make Chuck a big presence at Comic-Con. He wanted it to make a splash. He wanted the fans there to feel like they really connected to this show and were a part of the team of Chuck early on, before there even was a fan base for the show. He just knew that was a place to bring the show, that they would love it. And yeah, they've been a huge part of the success of the show. I mean, from the Subway, sandwich drive to all of the blogging and the whole internet presence of the show. I read an article, I think it was in the New York Times, about how the Nielsen ratings really don't reflect. Yeah, I mean, they really don't reflect anymore what shows are in the consciousness and in the awareness of people and what they're paying attention to. There's so many other ways to consume these shows.
Right.
First of all, besides watching it on the network broadcast. But second of all, there's kind of a buzz factor that happens online that you just can't. It's hard to quantify. And in this article, they were saying that 2.5 Men, for example, gets a huge audience. Huge. I mean, 10 times the audience that we get. But yet, if you look on the internet to kind of people's connection to the show or awareness or interaction with the show, there's almost none. Nobody goes online and talks about 2.5 Men. Nobody, they watch it, they consume it, and they forget about it. Chuck, on the other hand, in this New York Times article, I think it said we were the number one buzzed about show on the internet of all network shows, because the fans are invested. They want to talk about it. They want to share anecdotes they've heard or gossip they've heard, or they want to throw out opinions about storylines and where it should go. They just want to talk about it, and they want to share about it. And it was really amazing to see, 2.5 Men may beat us in the Nielsen's, but we kick their ass online. I mean, we really do.
No, it's true. On Friday night, I checked in on Get Glue.
Yeah.
And you guys were trending at number 2.
Wow.
On their website on Friday night. So above Ghost Adventures, above everything else on Friday night.
Wow.
So I can't remember what show was number 1, but you guys were number 2.
Wow. Yeah. I mean,
so,
it's.
And like a lot of my Twitter followers are from Belgium, Ireland, South America, Africa, Europe. They're from all over.
Yeah.
So yeah, Nielsen ratings is a dead system.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And it needs to be changed. Absolutely.
Yeah, we had some of the fans got together and made a thank you Chuck video. I don't know if you guys saw it. I'm sure a lot of the fans that watched this.
The one with Without You song behind it?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, exactly.
Yes. It was very moving.
And it was very moving. They all had signs, thanks Chuck, or we'll miss you. And it was just incredible. We actually got a copy, and the two girls that put that together, they flew out here and came to a crew lunch with us, and we actually screened it for the whole crew. On one of the sound stages, we screened that movie, and it was like 8 minutes long, I think. But it was just, people, some of our crew members were crying, and it was so moving because you see the scope of how the show has touched people. You see the scope of all these countries, like you said. It's incredible. It really is incredible, and not just how far the show has reached, but how deeply it's reached into people's lives. Right. And they really connect to the characters and the themes in the show, the kind of underdog, who can be a hero, the value of family relationships, the values of just kind of caring for each other and teamwork, and it's been really incredible. It really has. And
okay, so all the fans online, they want to know, all-time favorite Chuck episode?
I think I would say Chuck versus the Honeymooners, which was when they were on the train trip to Puntoon, which is a made-up town. I have a sign up there in my office, which actually, I'm sure you probably know this, but the writers wanted them to go to Pound Town finally, or have sex, as you might say. So
right.
To go to Pound Town, we made up this literal town called Puntoon in Switzerland. So they went to Puntoon, and finally were able to consummate their love. But anyway, besides that, historic event, which was amazing, the whole episode just had everything. It had comedy from Yvonne in a way that I think they finally wrote the opportunity for her, and she stepped up to the plate and nailed it. She was so funny, and there was just such a different sort of energy. You know, her character evolved in dramatic ways, and that episode in particular, she just took quantum leaps ahead, I thought, in terms of the kind of lightness and the fun and the versatility that she had as an actress. She was great, and the romance of being on the train all through Europe, and the towns that we got out in, the beautiful fight they had, which was like this gorgeous dance of the two of them in sync together, and it was just a great episode. I think that was one of my favorite episodes.
Yeah, a lot of symbolism in that episode.
Is
Yeah.
that also your favorite episode to direct?
It was one of my favorites. I mean, it was a hard one, although, you know, you look at it, when it's done, it looks very simple. We're on a train for a lot of it. But we shot that train in three different places. There's a place in Fillmore, California that's like a historic train museum. So we're on a real train. But, you know, with those old trains, there's one door in, and everybody's trying to get in and out, and the deck is steel. It's very hard, and we had
Production nightmare.
It was a production nightmare to get everybody in and out of this tiny train, and to keep things rolling. We had some long days there, long nights, so it was a tough one to shoot. Then we also built some sets on stage for their sleeping car, and what else do we? It was a big episode, but it was a lot of fun to direct. I loved directing the Christmas episode. I think it was season 2, where the car crashed through. It was kind of
through the Bymore.
Yeah, the car crashed in the Bymore, and they held everybody hostage. And
Right.
And you know, Morgan did the. Was it Morgan that took out the guy? I don't know.
I think it was Big Mike.
Big Mike. They had the big fight where everybody was dressed as elves, and it was like a slow motion fight in Santa's village. You know, trying to take out the bad guys, which was hilarious, and that was a lot of fun. You got everybody together, and there was a lot of heart, and you kind of had Sarah in the Christmas tree lot, you know, killing our bad guy in a very, you know, the thing that's always fun about Chuck is the kind of hybrid nature of the show, that you've got spy stories that you can really play life and death stories in a very real and dark and edgy way. You've got ridiculous, absurd humor in the Bymore that you can just push to the extremes, and then you've got a ton of heart in the romance and the family stories that you can play with. So when you get everybody together and you're able to play all of those, like that Christmas episode had, it's really satisfying. It's a lot of fun. So.
Can you give me a practical prank on set every single cast member refused?
Really?
Yeah, no one
Said
would.
it was too dirty.
They're all, too
Yeah.
nasty, you do this. But they all started laughing.
There's a lot of bathroom humor on our show. There's a lot of laughing about bodily functions like farting, pooping. There's a lot of that going on. I'm trying to think of a practical. I'm horrible with this. At Star Trek conventions, I'm horrible with this because we have so much fun on this show, and we laugh nonstop. But to try to bottle that and explain it like a story is really hard.
Or pick one, even.
Or even to pick one. I mean, we've had some ridiculous moments and silliness, and
How would you describe each cast member?
we've had a lot of silliness. How would I describe each one?
Yeah.
Zach's just all heart. He's great. He's all heart, and that's been incredible to see somebody who's the lead on a show like this with as much kind of love and commitment to the work and to the people as he's got. That's been incredible. Adam Baldwin, I would describe as my favorite political nemesis in the world. Yvonne, I would just say I'm really incredibly impressed and proud of how she's grown up as a young woman and as a woman and as an actress too. And I feel like she's learned so much and gone so much further with the work than I could have ever imagined. Josh Gomez is just the best buddy anyone could ever want. He's just a great guy, and surprisingly funny at any given moment. You know, is always you can rely on him for a laugh. Scott Krinsky, I'm just so proud to see a huge transformation with his character this year and what they kind of wrote for him, and him kind of having played one note brilliantly for so long, and then to be able to change it this year was great. Vic, I'm really proud of his fearlessness with the singing. That's been incredible. And also his impromptu, dialogue that he throws out there every now and then. Actually, always. He's always improvising, and it's a little frightening sometimes, but it's genius. Who else we got? Ryan McPartlin. Ryan's great. He's the nicest guy and does the worst foreign accents that just make me laugh. And he knows it, and he does. I love his Australian accent. Mark Christopher Lawrence. I shouldn't have picked all of them because now I've got to go through everybody. Mm-hmm. Mark is great. Mark actually tested for a pilot that I was doing called Samantha Who at the same time, and he was wonderful, and ended up not getting on that show but doing Chuck, which I'm so glad that worked out, and I get to work with him on Chuck. He's great. Sarah Lancaster is just everybody's best sister, and such a lovely pro, and the easiest person, most effortless person to work with and to watch work. She's always prepared, always such a joy to work with. McKenna, I'm super proud of. She came in and auditioned with one word, was her first audition.
What word?
Mom. Mm-hmm. And it was in the episode where Casey realizes that we reveal his ex-fiancée and that backstory, and at the very end, after the big fight, the tag of it is a girl walks in and says Mom, and we realize Casey has a daughter. And that was sort of written as potentially just a one-off, that we do one episode, and many episodes later we decided to go back and, what if we brought Casey's daughter into an episode and gave her more, but we'd only heard McKenna read one word. And so everybody was a little nervous, like, we don't even know if she really can act. We only saw her say Mom. So they wrote some scenes, and we were kind of crossing our fingers and hoping, and we had her just put those scenes on tape just to let us know that she could do it, and she was fabulous, and she's just gotten better and better, and I think Chuck really changed her career and her life. I mean, it was a huge opportunity, and I'm really happy for her.
Bonnie?
Bonita's amazing. I mean, I knew Bonnie from Star Trek days because her husband John Billingsley was on Enterprise, and I worked with John on The Nine, a show called The Nine. So I'd known John for years, and I'd known Bonnie as John's wife, but I'd never really worked with her or seen her act, and she's just been incredible. She's been incredible and such a joy, and who else?
And you've had just a slew of
we'll
celebrity
be here all day
guests. Let's not go through those, but
exactly.
I mean, just like, what was it like to be able to work with such talented pop culture actors?
Yeah, the icons that we've had on this show has been incredible. The Bo Derek episode hasn't been on. We had Bo Derek on our show playing Bo Derek, and it's it's brilliant, and she's fabulous. We've had so many people. I got to direct Dolph Lundgren, and I did a movie with Dolph 20-some years ago when I was a kid, and I did Masters of the Universe.
Oh, you were in that?
Yeah. Me and Courtney Cox were the kids.
Okay.
And Dolph was, a huge star back in the 80s. He's coming off the heels of Rocky. And then to come full circle and be able to direct Dolph Lundgren, who I did one of my first movies with, and it was just incredible. So, yeah, the stars have been endless. I feel like we're the Love Boat of modern television in a good way, with all the pop culture icons we've attracted and the great actors we've had on the show. And Timothy Dalton, Scott Bakula, Gary Cole. It's just the list goes on. John Larroquette. Yeah, I don't want to leave anybody out, so I'll stop there. But it's
you better mention Chuck's mom.
Oh, and Linda Hamilton. Linda Hamilton, who I met at a Star Trek convention or a fan convention just a month before we were creating the character, bringing in the character of Chuck's mom. And I came back and we started talking about Chuck's mom. And some names came up and I said, I just had met Linda Hamilton for the first time over in London at a convention. Put her in the mix, and it ended up working out. So, yeah.
Awesome. That's so random. I love it.
Yeah. So.
Okay. Well, speaking of pop culture references,
yeah.
The show Chuck is awesome with that. Like the Comic-Con logo in Chuck's room,
yeah.
The different posters, the quotes, even some of the shots and movie and stories and setups, and it's very. I've noticed you guys have not stolen, but homage.
We have homaged. I mean, that's part of the character of Chuck and Morgan, and kind of where their heads are at. That's the world that they're coming from, is fans of movies and games and TV shows and comic books and all of it. They're Comic-Con nerds themselves, and so to take all of that great sort of the encyclopedia of pop culture and to try to throw it into our storytelling has been really fun to do. And I mean, we've had incredible writers that have been able to come up with really inventive stories with a ton of heart and lots of fun and surprises, and still throw in lots of Easter eggs of these crazy references to the most obscure TV show. We had Nighthawk references from the Nighthawk show in the 80s, the motorcycle show that ran for 12 episodes or something.
Yeah. No, yeah. I'm at home on the couch every time going, oh my gosh, I can't believe they just referenced that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So Chris and I were talking about Misfits of Science, which ran back in the 80s with Courtney Cox was in it. And there was some scene, and Chris was going, yeah, it's just like that Misfits of Science episode. And we go on YouTube and we're looking it up. Yeah, we'll shoot it like Misfits of Science. I can't believe we're doing that, And it's amazing that we can do that. That's the other thing is, nowadays you're able to kind of, even if you have a vague memory of something, a movie moment or a TV moment, you can find it so quickly, and we're able to sort of pick those, think of vague memories and then pull specifically off the internet and go, yeah, exactly like that, or let's use that quote, or pull up a scene, or shoot it like this. So yeah, it's been a lot of fun.
Well, then let's geek out real quick. Some questions.
Yes.
Favorite movie?
Oh God, these favorites. I'm so bad at.
Throw 5 out there. I don't care. What could you sit at home and just watch over and over?
Over and over. I love a weird variety of things. I love The Wizard of Oz. I would say is one of my favorite movies of all time. I love The Fight Club. I love Trainspotting.
Oh.
I love Star Wars, of course. I love E.T. I could watch E.T. over and over and over again.
Do you even get the opportunity to watch modern day TV?
Not so much. Modern shows that I love American Horror Story right now. It's crazy, over the top, ridiculous, but I love it. It's not middle of the road. That's what I love. I love shows that don't like water down and try to be middle of the road.
Game of Thrones.
Game of Thrones is awesome. I love Homeland right now on Showtime. Is phenomenal.
Books? Do you read much?
I used to read a ton. That was like the joke on the Star Trek set, because I was always sitting down front. I was the pilot, so I'm the front chair, and usually they're doing people shots behind me, and I'd have a book down there, and I'd be reading, and I wouldn't even be paying attention half the time. And they'd be like, Mr. Paris, oh, and I'd put my book away. So I used to read I was fanatic, but nowadays I don't read that much, and when I do, it's a lot of nonfiction. I used to read a ton of fiction.
Are you a gamer?
But I'm not so much a gamer, I have to admit. I know I work on Chuck, I should be. I'm old school gamer, back to
stand-up arcades?
Yeah, stand-up arcade games. I played those when I was young, and I had a Commodore when I was young, and I had an Atari. I had some of those, but I never quite got hooked, and And the new stuff, I just don't. I can't. No.
Okay.
I watch my son play though. I love watching him play.
Yeah, they're like movies.
Yeah, that's incredible. Yeah, it's really incredible. Yeah.
And what do you
What
want
else?
your legacy with Chuck to be? What do you
My
want the fans
legacy-
to remember about you with Chuck?
Wow. What do I want them to remember about me with Chuck? I just hope that they think that I was able to help bring out the best in everybody, all the great talent we had on the show. That's what I wanted to do. I just, I always feel like a director doesn't really do much of anything. I mean, I don't light the lights, I don't run a camera, I don't act the scene, I don't write the script. Director's job is really to help people do their best, and I think we had a lot of really talented people working on Chuck.
You guys have an amazing crew.
We got an amazing crew. They're phenomenal. So I hope my legacy is that they think that I was kind of consistently there to help people do their best, and maybe brought out the best in them. That would be a good legacy.
And what's next for you?
What's next? I've got some shows I'm developing. Hopefully some new shows. We'll see. Those are always a long shot, but I've got that. I'm directing next the end of January. After the holidays, I'll go direct a show called Smash for NBC. It's the big Broadway musical show, which will be a lot of fun because I did some of that in my younger days. I actually was on Broadway in a play called 6 Degrees of Separation. I was in that original cast. Yeah, there's my poster. And I was in that first national tour, which you guys can't see on the camera, but that's Into the Woods. That was the first national tour of Into the Woods. I did a bunch of musicals in New York. So that'll be fun to direct, to go back and kind of play in that world a little bit with my new life and kind of connect it to my old life. That'll be a lot of fun.
So, you, music background then, huh?
Yeah, I never really studied formally. I taught myself to play piano, and I love having a sing along at home. I love sitting down and playing. I don't read music, but I play chords, and so I kind of fake it, and yeah, that's but that's okay. That's all right. You can go a long way. Mostly, it's about just getting it out, and I love having sing-alongs at the house, and yeah, I really enjoy it.
All right. Well, we'll wrap this up with
Great.
the down the road show questions.
Yes.
Since I do a lot of Comic-Cons,
Yes.
I've designed 3 questions that I ask everybody on my show.
Okay.
And you can tell a lot about a person by the way they answer these.
Uh-oh.
Who's your favorite superhero?
Spider-Man, I think.
Why?
Oh, why? Why? I think it's the love story side of Spider-Man, that he's got a love that is kind of that he can't quite make happen, and I don't know. And I think the age of him too. He's a kid, there's something captured in his age that just feels special. You know what I mean? That a young person, that a pretty young person becomes a superhero. That's pretty awesome, as opposed to some older, jaded, grown up. Spider-Man. I'd go with Spider-Man.
Who's your favorite villain?
My favorite villain.
Mine's Darth Vader.
Really? My favorite villain. Are we talking like in the comic book
Could
vein?
be anything. That's why I don't say super villain or anything like that. I like to leave that one more vague and wide open because there's so much out there from TV and movies and books and just,
Wow.
Ronald Reagan. I'm kidding, Adam.
Yeah, Adam, he's kidding. He's kidding. Not really. Favorite villain. Boy, that's a tough one. See, it's funny, as an actor, I always had trouble with the name villain, because I don't think there's bad guys. As an actor, I never could look at characters as bad people, because you can't play that. You can't play, I'm playing a bad guy, because bad guys always have something that's motivating them, some reason that they're doing their bad behavior. They're not trying to be bad people. They're doing what they think is right. So, favorite villain. Wow. I
Pretty
don't
true statement.
know. That's a tough one. God, you may have stumped me.
That's okay. George Takei couldn't
I-
answer me either.
I would say, well, there's so many. I think my favorite villain as a concept was the Borg on Star Trek.
Relentless.
Yeah, because it wasn't just one person. It was you're fighting this idea, this collective kind of idea that's so powerful, and that was a pretty cool villain.
That's a good choice.
Yeah, the Borg were pretty awesome and imposing villain to face. So I also felt sorry for them, you know.
Well, because most of them were assimilated. They
Yeah,
didn't start out as
exactly.
Borg.
Yeah,
And once
exactly.
again, like you said, not starting as bad people.
Yeah, they're not starting as bad people. They're kind of, yeah, they didn't choose this. That wasn't their choice.
Right.
These bad things they're doing. So the
All right,
Borg are pretty nasty.
Last question.
Yeah,
I'm
keep
pretty
going.
sure I know the answer.
Yeah.
Who's your real life hero who inspires you on a daily basis?
You think you know my answer? My real life hero.
It's okay to be cliche.
I would say my family. Is that what you thought I was going to say?
Mm-hmm. You seem like a very
that's nice.
family-oriented, and in this conversation we've been having, you talk a lot about the family of Chuck and
Yeah.
how that's a driving force of the show.
Yeah, I
So-
would say that's what inspires me. Yeah, definitely. My kids, my wife is incredible to put up with the long hours that I work and the craziness that I put her through with this career. She's my hero.
Right.
And to raise our kids as well as she has without a lot of help from me sometimes when I just physically can't be there.
Right.
She's awesome. And my kids are great.
Yeah, because these shows don't just magically appear.
They're hard. And this one was the hardest I've ever done. Chuck was by far the hardest. So.
Most rewarding, maybe?
Absolutely. It was the most of everything.